Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be an action-packed video because I'm going to be showing you how to use the chat widget like a pro. So we're going to split this video into two. First, I'm going to start by showing you how to get started with the chat widget. That'll be the beginner steps of connecting data to the chat widget, displaying charts, changing chat types, and a couple other configurations when using the chat widget. Then I'm going to show you how to use the chat widget like a pro. And we're going to be exploring using custom chats with FusionCharts, and we'll also take a look at another awesome tool called Cube.dev that makes it easy to pull analytics insight from any data source. Are you excited for this? I'm sure you are. My name is Confident and I'm a developer advocate at AppSmith. Without any delay, let's get started. Alright, so right here we have a blank application, and the first thing we need to do is connect it to a data source. I have this Google Sheet set up, and this has all of the information we'll be using to build out the chat data. So this is a sheet that contains product information. We have the product title, the product body, type, status, price, order, quantity, and image. And we'd like to display a sales info on the chart. So we have the products on the x-axis and the number of sales on the y-axis. To be able to do that, we know that the sales will be a function of the price and definitely the order quantity. So let's go ahead to connect the application to this Google Sheet, and then we can display that information on the chart. So the first thing I need to do here is go to data sources and create a new Google Sheets integration. So I'm going to call this G Sheets. All right. And let's save and authorize this sheet. All right. I'm authorizing using my Gmail account. All right. So I'm going to go ahead to allow this. And there we have the Google Sheet authorized. So let's go ahead to create a new API. And this is going to be one to fetch products from the Google Sheet I just walked you through earlier. So let's call this get products. All right. The method is going to be fetch sheet rows. I'm just going to paste in the spreadsheet URL. And for the sheet name, this is going to be sheet 1 because that's the same sheet name we have right here on the G Sheet page. So I can go ahead to run this, and we should have a bunch of products coming back as a response from the API. And we can of course display this in a table format and see all of that information right here. So this looks good. We are pulling in data into the application. Now let's go ahead to display this in a chat widget. So I'm just going to bring in a chat widget, place it right here on the canvas. Let's expand this a bit so that it looks nice and large. Then taking a look at the configuration of the chat widget, we have the series data, and these are the data points that are used to plot the chat widget. So each series data is an array of objects that has the X and Y coordinates, the X coordinates being the label, which in this case is just a string, and the Y coordinate is the number that gives quantity to that label. So for our products, we would need to write some JavaScript to map over the data coming from the API response and return a list of XY coordinates that are similar to what you saw earlier. So this is going to be getProduct.data.map. And for each product, what we want to do is return an object that has an X coordinate, which in this case is going to be the product title. So this is p.title. And we also need a Y coordinate, which will be the sales value. And we can get the sales value by multiplying the price and the quantity. So this is going to be p.price multiplied by p.orders. All right, so this looks good. And taking a look at the chart, we can see that we have all of that information plotted right here. We can see all of the various products from the Google Sheet, and we can see their various revenue respectively per product. This is really nice and easy. I'm going to show you some other configuration options in the chat widget. One cool configuration option is being able to change the labels on the X and Y axis. So instead of saying product line, I can say something like products. And you can see that this right here has been updated to products, and the same also goes for the y-axis label that can be updated as well. There are many other configuration features. I'm going to leave that to you to go check them out. But one last one I'm going to show you real quick is being able to change the chart type. So there are various chart types that are supported out of the box. We have line charts, we have, let's go back to bar charts, we have bar charts, We have pie charts. I really love the pie chart because you can click on a piece and it pops out. That's really cool. And you have the column chart, which I think we took a look at earlier. And you also have area chart. And of course, you have custom charts, which we'll be exploring in the pro section. So this is the basics of using the chart widget. And by now, you actually know all you need to get started using the chart widget. So here comes the pro section, and in this section, I'll be teaching you really cool advanced features when it comes to using the chart widget. For this, we'll be using a different data source. We would not be using Google Sheets. We'll be using a tool called Cube.dev. It's a really awesome tool that helps you analyze any data set and pull out metrics or analytics from that data set. I already have an account, so I'm going to go ahead to sign in. If you do not have one, please, I highly encourage you set one up and get going. So I'm going to sign in using my Google account, and I already have an instance set up by connecting it to a database that has a bunch of others. So we're going to take a look at my deployment as soon as this loads up. All right, so this is in the US Superstore deployment, and first thing we need to do here is connect our application to Cube. So Cube provides various ways to connect to your deployment. You have a REST API, you have SQL, you have GraphQL. Virtually every connection method is possible with Cube. So I'm going to be using the REST API. So let's copy this call import command over, and let's go ahead to create a new page and import the API into the application. So let's go ahead to import this command. So I'm just going to paste this in and go ahead to click on import. All right, this looks good. I would need to save this as a data source because I'm going to be using this a couple of times. So let's go ahead to save this as a data source. I'm going to call this Cube and make sure the URL is the full URL path. And I probably should also delete the content type because the content type would be updated based on what request is being run. All right, so this looks good and I can go ahead to save this. And we have a data source for Cube configured. So let's delete the extra URL path that was added in there. All right, so heading back to the Cube dashboard, the first thing I want to do is display a table of products that has both the product name and the product ID. And I can do that by heading over to the playground and building up a query that actually visualizes what I want. So let's go to measure, and this is going to be others count. For the dimensions, I would need to pull out the product ID and also the product name. So we have the product ID right here, and let's add one more for the product name. All right, this looks good. And we can order by time. All right, this looks good. And we can delete the time dimension. So let's go ahead to run this in the playground, and we should have a table coming back with all of the info we just selected. All right, and we can see the table right here in Cube.js. So we have both the product ID, the product name, and also the counts of the orders for that particular product. So I'm going to go ahead to take this data out by going to the JSON query, copying it out, and then heading back to my API and configuring this to get the products from Cube. So let's call this the get products API. And this is going to be a post request, and we need a body. For the body, this is going to be a JSON body, and let's give this a query that has the value of the query we actually copied from the Cube dashboard. All right, so let's go ahead to run this. All right, and we have nice data coming back from Cube displayed right here. I can bring this up real quick, and you can see that in the data property, we actually have a bunch of orders being returned from the Cube backend, which is really cool. So let's go ahead to display this in a table widget on AppSmith. And that's really easy because to the right of the dashboard, we actually have the ability to select a table and have that data bound to the table automatically without doing any other thing, which is really cool. So I can expand this just to make it more visible, to make the table big enough for us to see what we're building. And here we have a bunch of product IDs, we have the product name, and we have the total sales record for a product, which is really cool. Now, the fun part with building a chart comes in getting the actual order information for a product. So we want to build a chart such that whenever we go select a product, we are able to pull the product count, the number of unique orders, the number of customers who bought that product, and the number of items bought for that specific product. And we can build a complex chart that superimposes all of these values in one single graph using FusionCharts. So let's go to the Cube dashboard and let me show you how this would look like. All right, so I'm going to create a new tab here. And for the measure, we are going to be adding the counts. We are also going to measure the unique orders. We're going to measure the customers, and we're also going to measure the items. And that's what we need for the measure. For the time dimension, this is going to be by the order dates. And lastly, we want to add a filter that makes it possible for us to search for all of this information given a particular product ID. So I have a product ID right here, and I'm just going to copy it over and use it as the test data. So for this filter, we want to filter by product ID, and we want it to be equal to a particular value, which I'm just going to paste the product ID I copied earlier. And this looks good. So I'm going to go ahead to run this right now. All right, and we can see all of those dimensions in a single chart. So all of that information is displayed right here, and we have a nice chart showing us the info here. So our goal is going to plot a similar chart in AppSmith, but using FusionCharts. In fact, AppSmith supports custom charts, so I'm just going to quickly show you something. All of the links I would be talking about will be left in the description below so that you can go check them out. Under the hood, AppSmith uses FusionCharts, so I'm going to show you a list of supported charts that are available or possible on AppSmith. You have about 100+ charts that are supported using FusionCharts, and we can get all of this charting functionality in AppSmith by going to the custom chart section. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be using the stacked column 2D chart. So we have the stacked column 2D chart. This is the chart we'll be using to plot the information you saw on Cube, where we have multiple values or multiple graphs superimposed on a single graph, and we can see all of that info right here. So we have the Cube query set up, and we also know the chart we'll be using from FusionCharts. The next thing we need to do right now is to write a query to pull the data from Cube so that we can go ahead to build the chart you just saw. All right, to do that, let's head back to Cube, and we would want to export the JSON query. So I'm just going to copy this over. We have the Cube data source. So I'm going to use this to create a new API, and this is going to get order details. All right, this looks good. So let's set this to a post request, and for the body, this is going to be a JSON body with some query that has the code we copied from Cube. The only addition we need to make here is modify the values so that the actual product ID comes from the item selected on the table. So this is going to come from table1.selected row.product ID, and we're good to go. We see everything looks good in the evaluated value, and we can go ahead to give this a run, and we can see that we have those measures being shown here. In the data property, we're able to take a look at the dates, the counts, the unique orders, the customers, the items. All of this information is available right here. I need to head back to the table widget and make a simple mod to make sure that whenever an item is selected on a table widget, we actually go to re-execute the get order details query. All right, so this is going to be on row selected. What we want to do is execute the get order details query. All right, and that looks good. So let's go ahead to start extracting the data to build the chart. First, let's bring in the chart widget. All right, so we have a chart widget right here. All right, so let's expand this to look nice. So here we have the chart widget. The first thing we need to do is go to set the chart type to a custom chart. And that's because we'll be using a custom Fusion chart for this. So let's go ahead to set this to custom type. And here we have a custom chart shown on the chart widget. Now you can see that the actual API of the chart widget has been exposed to us. And taking a look at what we have here, we can see that this requires a type and a data source. So we can head back to the Fusion chart and try to marry what properties are required to plot the stacked column 2D chart. So taking a look at the stacked column 2D chart, we actually need a couple of properties. The first is the categories. We need the categories, and next we need the data sets. So these are the two properties that are required to plot a stacked column 2D chart. So let's go ahead to copy the JavaScript alias. I'm I'm just going to copy this over, head back to AppSmith, paste it right here. And there we have the stacked column 2D. Next, I need to delete the actual data property, because instead of passing in a data property, I would need to pass in an array of categories and an array of data sets. So that's what I'll be modifying to make this work as a stacked column 2D chart. So to get that going, let's head back to create a JavaScript file that extracts the data needed to plot the chart. So we already have the get orders query. I'm just going to go ahead to create a new JavaScript file that does all of the extraction for us. So let's go ahead to build that function together. So this is going to be a chart function, and I can just call this file utils, which looks good. All right, so for the chart function, what I'm going to do here is paste in a code snippet that extracts all of those dimensions we selected from Cube and also saw in the API response. So we have the orders, we have the customers, we have the unique orders, and we have the category. Don't forget that in order to plot the chart, we need an array of categories. So let's actually build that out. So this is going to be const category. So this is going to be const categories, which would be an array containing an object of category. All right, this looks good. Next, we are going to create a data set that makes use of all of the other dimensions we're extracting right here. So taking a look at the line right here, we're extracting the orders from the get order details query by mapping over and just returning the orders.count. Same as the customers, that's exactly what we're doing right here for the customers. And the same also goes for the unique orders. It's the exact same thing that is being done right here. So what we're going to do now is create a data set that has a series name and a data value that maps to each of these properties we're extracting from the get order details query. So let's go ahead to do that. This is going to be const data set. All right. And this is going to be an array that has a bunch of objects. Each object has a series name. So this is going to be a series name. And let's start by creating a series for the orders. And for the data, this is going to come from orders. All right, that looks good. We also need to create a data set for customers. So this requires a series name, which is going to be customers. And we also need to pass some data, which maps to customers. All right, that looks good. And lastly, let's do one more for unique orders. So this requires a series name, which is unique orders. All right, for the data, this is going to come from unique underscore orders, and this looks good. So we have both the categories and the data set, and that's basically all of the information we need to plot the custom Fusion chart which I showed you earlier. So let's go ahead to return this data because that's all we need. So I'm going to return an object that has the data set and also the categories. All right, so now the chart function is done. What I need to do now is go test this out by clicking on the run button. And taking a look at this, we have a bunch of chart information being returned that would enable us to plot the chart you saw earlier. So let's head back to the canvas and let's actually wire that up to the custom chart we're trying to build. Don't forget that this requires a data set as well as a categories array, and let's go ahead to pass those two values into this chart. So right now this is a JSON structured data. I'm just going to convert it to an object so that I can use the spread operator to easily pull out the categories and also the data set from the utils chart function. So this is going to be the spread operator utils.chart. All right, and this looks good. And we can see the sales reports for the product selected on the table, which looks really awesome. So we can go ahead to update this to sales reports, which actually is nice. Or we can say something like order details. All right. And for the x-axis, let's rename this to dates because we are plotting against dates. And lastly, for the y-axis, this is going to be renamed to the unique orders. All right, and this looks good. We can see all of the dates right here on the x-axis, and we can see the count of unique orders for each of the individual items on that particular order. So this combines the orders, combines the customers, combines the unique orders all into a single chart. And we can go select a new product, for example, and see that data reload and reflected on the chart right here, which I think is actually really cool, as you can see. All right, we've seen in this video how to use the chart widget like a pro, and we've considered advanced use cases for the chart widget by exploring custom charts using FusionCharts. If you'd like to learn more about custom charts, especially using other chart types, aside from the one we explored in today's video, please go check out this video on building custom charts on AppSmith using FusionCharts. If you're also interested in more pro or advanced features, we also made this video on syncing your apps using Git sync, which is the version control system built into AppSmith. So go check out this video if you'd love to learn more. Alright, that'll be all for today's video. Till I see you next time. Take care and stay safe. Bye bye.